those decisions she had to make in order to bring her family up with honor and dignity. She had secrets that haunted her most of her life, I should say. And when those secrets were revealed, the family came into a lot of wealth, that's why it's called fortune. But it also brought evil with it, and greed and corruption.
Money is the root of all evil.
That's right. This young girl, and I'll tell you the reason for this story. It was something I wanted to write. I dreamt of writing all my life, because coming from an age where the generation is so different from today, and I thought I could capture some of the difficulties of situations at a time when society was not as liberal as it is today. And as a young girl, as a teenage girl, and as a young woman growing up, I was able to confront a lot of these situations. I've had friends and friends of friends who have been in situations like these. So I've always thought one day I should write a story about that.
What's the setting?
And now the setting is this young girl. She is from a middle-class family, but falls in love with a boy from an upper-class family. They went to school together, they graduated high school together, and then their lives took different and unexpected paths. While he enjoyed the freedom of young adult life, she suffered a lot of heartache and embarrassment, because she was with child, something that he didn't know about and never knew about. But when eventually she gave birth to a son, and this young man became a scholar. Actually, she got married after the baby was born, and that was one of the choices she had to make. She chose someone that she barely knew, just to have a home for her child. And the child, she went on later on to have other kids, but that child grew up, was a scholar, went to Harvard, became a doctor, and did his internship in the hospital in which he was born and in the town where his mother and grandparents lived. And one day while he was in the hospital, he was called on by a colleague to look at the patient. And there is an excerpt I can read for you.
Go ahead.
And without telling you, when I read that excerpt, you will know. Now, the name of the young doctor is Dr. Roy McPherson. His mother was Fiona, and Fiona Layton. Then she got married to this McPherson. That's why the boy was adopted by McPherson. But his father, his real father, was Stephen Brim.
Okay.
And it is something that, where is it? I marked the page. Now, he's in the hospital doing his rounds, and he's called away by a colleague. During one of his routine visits to the floor to see his grandfather, Roy was called away by a colleague for a consultation on a patient. Dr. Harmon often sought Roy's advice. He trusted his judgment and admired him for being a brilliant doctor. When Roy entered the room, the patient, a middle-aged man about 50 years, was propped up in bed examining the contents of a dinner tray in front of him. Dr. Harmon introduced Dr. McPherson, and the two doctors spoke briefly while looking at the patient's chart. Then Roy proceeded to examine Mr. Brim. While doing so, he noticed that the patient had a scar on his right hip. He questioned him about it and was told that it was a birthmark. Quite a unique mark, Roy said. I have only seen one other. And with that, he smiled and looked at the chart again, this time making note of the patient's name. After a brief conversation with Dr. Harmon, as they walked down the corridor, Roy departed to check on his grandfather. The next day, Dr. Harmon informed Roy that his patient's lab results were in, and he wanted to go over them with Roy at his earliest convenience. As usual, Roy always made himself available as soon as his busy schedule permitted. He, however, caught up with Dr. Harmon sooner than he had expected and was privileged to examine and give his opinion of the results concerning the patient who was diagnosed with a rare blood disorder. Would you allow me to do some further testing? Roy inquired of his colleague. Sure. Let me know if you come up with anything else, the good doctor replied. So Roy put through the order for more lab work to be done on Mr. Brim. He was particularly interested in his case and was not at all curious when he noticed that the patient had the similar blood type as his. In keeping with his promise to his wife, Roy took his family out to the farm that weekend. It had been several weeks since he had taken his son to visit his parents. Fiona was thrilled to have a baby in the family after many years, but expressed disappointment at not seeing her grandson often. While there, Roy mentioned to his father about his encounter with a scarred hip patient at the hospital, and his mother overheard it.
We're going to have to stop there.
Well, the thing of it is, he also was born with that scar. It went on, the story went on.
Folks are going to have to read the book.
Okay.
They're going to have to read the book to
To
find
find
out.
out, okay.
Yes. What's your best tip for writers?
Well, I would say go with your intuition. I would say do what you feel, what your gut feeling is. You know, you write how you think the story will go. You know, too often writers, they tend to look at the textbook scenario.
Everyone has their own story.
Yeah, you know, you should, reach in and get what
Tell
you,
your
and,
story.
yes, and tell your own story. And
Thank you so much, Anne.
thank you for having me, Linda.